Story 1. E.T. the alien looked way too much like my grandma, which made me believe she was an alien for about 2 years. She was, but a different kind of alien. Story 2. I saw Children of the Corn at like 5 or 6 at home with my dad. I was okay with it up until they attacked the old people in the cafe. They reminded me of my grandparents, and I just started screaming. My dad got in a lot of trouble for that, laughing out loud. Story 3. Watership Down, a 1978 British film, scarred a generation of British children. I watched it when I was 6. It is a movie about rabbits leaving the cruelty of humans and setting off on a journey. I still remember the film clearly to this day. Very powerful and poignant. Bright Eyes, written by Mike Batt and vocals by Art Garfunkel. I haven't listened to the song in its entirety because of memories of watching the film. A beautiful song nevertheless. Story 4. The original It. My mom loved horror movies, and I was probably 4 or 5 when I first saw it. It scared the living daylights out of me and still does to this day. I hate clowns. Story 5. Watched The Exorcist around 9 years old, and the week of nightmares that followed still haunts me. Vividly remember Reagan climbing into my bed in full possession mode. Story 6. The never-ending story When the Horse Dies was the first time I cried during a movie. Our school used to do a cinema day once a month where they played movies in the school hall, and unfortunately, the same few movies rotated every 6 months or so. I watched the movie for the first time at one of these showings and didn't really let anyone know I was crying. The second time they showed the movie, I thought I was prepared for the scene, but nope, proper snotty tears and sobbing that time. By the third time they showed the movie, I told my teacher I was sick and got myself sent home from school. I still can't watch the movie without crying my eyes out. Story 7. American History X, particularly the part with the curb. I hadn't been paying attention, so I can't even tell you the plot, and I haven't watched it since. I just happened to look up and saw that happening. Story 8. Deliverance. I was too young for that. The sexual abuse scene was a real eye-opener, and it was very scary. But it also launched my love of bluegrass music. Story 9. Not a movie, but an episode of X-Files. It had this stretchy guy who ate people's livers. His eyes would change color before he did. He was killed by an escalator at the end, but that scared me straight for years. Story 10. There are 2 that stand out. Both I watched at the movie theater when I was 12. The day after. Mind you, it was 1983, and nuclear holocaust was really something you thought nearby. And Apocalypse Now, I didn't freak out more because I was the oldest, and my baby sister and little cousin were losing their minds. Yeah, my uncle thought it was an action or disaster movie like Tower Inferno that we kids of the 70s and 80s tolerated just fine. Story 11. Showing my age here. The Abominable Snowman, a 1957 black and white movie about an expedition into the Himalayas looking for Yetis. I was 8 or so when I watched it on TV. Scared the living crap out of me. Didn't sleep with the lights off for a long time. Story 12. Oh my! Stepfather at a sleepover party with a bunch of girls. I must have been around 10. It was some horrible movie about a stepfather who murdered his family. I was petrified of my father for months, afraid that he was hiding under my bed, and I looked under it for weeks. Story 13. I was prompted to ask this question because as I was scrolling through movies to watch on HBO Max, I saw an early 1970s movie called Sisters. A scene in it scarred me as a child. Even though I was mildly curious, I couldn't bear to rewatch it to see if it would have the same effect today. Story 14. Not a movie, but a few Twilight Zones messed me up as a kid. Like the one where the mannequins come to life, the one with talking Tina, and the one with the evil slot machine that keeps screaming Franklin in a creepy voice. Story 15. Our elementary school had a whole school viewing of The Old Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as some kind of reward. This was in the late 1980s. I think the older grades would have been fine on their own, but the kids in the lower grades lost their minds when the first golden ticket winner kind of drowns in the Candy River and gets sucked up a tube. When the young kids all freaked out, cried, and fell apart, it caused a sort of social contagion wave, and even a good portion of the older kids freaked out too. They released all of us from school early that day. Parents came and picked up kids, and everything like there had been some kind of disaster. Story 16. I found Coraline to be low-key traumatizing. That's all I got in terms of movies. Now TV shows, oh boy, here we go. Thanks to my sister we've got My Strange Addiction, I didn't know I was pregnant, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, House and Scrubs, plus a lot of other terrible shows for a child to witness. Story 17. Not a movie but a TV episode. The Simpsons Easter one that ended with them going to literal hell, with a tongue of flame sticking out and consuming them, and then the credits. Story 18. Jaws. I was 9 or 10. I woke up everyone that night, screaming that the shark was going to get me. Much to the amusement of my father, after the shock of being awakened from a deep sleep by his dumb kid, who pointed out that we were 1,000 miles from any beach where a shark could get me. Story 19. 1953 Telltale Heart Animation. No kid should watch this. Scared the life out of me. Free on YouTube. Story 20. Alien. I was like 10 when I first saw it. The chestburster scene left a scar for a good while. I was scared every time I had a minor discomfort in my abdomen. Story 21. Right off the bat, I should state it didn't scar me. Rather, it influenced me. When I was younger, in the early 1990s, a slightly older stepbrother used to always pick the movies, always slasher flicks. One day at the public library, he picked up Rocky Horror Picture Show based solely on the word horror. My family was appalled. Instead of the regular gore and nudity, it was a tale of self-expression and rejection of the norms of suburban life. I was enthralled. It led to teenage years full of punk rock and unconventional movies and forbidden films and books. I never wanted to put on fishnets and corsets, but I definitely wanted to be around those that did and test every societal norm that told me there was something wrong with those that did. That film showed me who was worth my time and who was a useless square in society's puzzle, and I will forever be grateful for what it showed me about life. Story 22. Man-Eater of Hydra. Corny movie about blood-sucking plants. I saw it when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was terrified of certain trees. Story 23. The movie Saw when I was 8 or 9 messed me right up, not because of how brutal it was, but because I realized all it took was a sick person with an engineering degree to accomplish something similar. Story 24. Blade. I don't know what my parents were thinking taking me to see that movie when I was only 7 or 8. I just remember crying at something scary and having to leave early. Story 25. When I was about 13 years old, I watched The Shining. The scene where Jack goes into room 237. At the time, I was at a friend's house and didn't really understand that it was a horror movie. 13-year-old me was super excited about this attractive lady showing her breasts. And then I was so horrified by the witch. Story 26. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I live in Texas, and seeing that dialogue in the beginning made me worry so much when I would travel with my parents. Those eerie sounds in the beginning haunted me. Story 27. Gordy. The movie about a pig. When I was probably 4, I already had serious attachment issues with my mom. I don't remember anything but the pig being taken from his mom. Story 28. Beetlejuice. The Fly, which was really cheesy and lame looking back on not too long ago. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids messed with my head too. I can't believe no one mentioned it after scrolling through all the comments. Story 29. Dude, Signs scared the shit out of child me. I must have been about 11 when I saw it. Absolutely terrifying. I watched it multiple times just to be terrified. Story 30. There was a movie that appeared on ABC when I was a little kid, like 6, where a kid lost his hair after seeing a ghost. They used some peanut butter mixture to get it to grow again. That caused me to try to make the mixture and spread it on lots of things. That didn't traumatize me, though. It was when I grabbed Fright Night at the video store, thinking it was the same movie, and my mom paid zero attention. Scared me badly. Story 31. Everyone claims it's a comedy, but 6 to 7-year-old me had night terrors for years of brain aliens zapping my family and turning me into a dog girl. Nearly 30 years later, and I still have never been able to watch it. Just the film cover on Netflix made me sweat. Story 32. Child's Play and the original It movie. My grandparents loved horror and would put it on for us when we would stay the night. I was probably 4 the first time I saw both those movies. I used to have recurring Chucky-themed nightmares. Story 33. There were a couple, neither of which I've ever found the names of. Both contained graphic violence, especially towards women, which I'm surprised was shown on television. Story 34. IT and eight-legged freaks are tied. Still hate spiders, but that's normal enough. However, it took about 10 years before I saw a sink or bathtub faucet without remembering IT. Story 35. I do not remember watching it, but I must have watched Goosebumps with my sister when I was around 7 because that poodle haunted my dreams for months. Story 36. Lawnmower Man. For quite a few years, I wasn't even sure if I dreamed the movie. Never bothered to search online, until I heard it mentioned in a rap line. Haven't watched it or a trailer though. Decided to cherish this little trauma. Story 37. The Haunting of Julia. I think it's also known as Full Circle. I stayed up really late to watch it when I was maybe 7. Everyone else was asleep. That movie scared the life out of me. To this day, I can't watch the opening where the little girl chokes to death. Freaks me out. Story 38. Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. My family played it during our Christmas Eve celebration. Our aunts and uncles loved getting a reaction out of us. We later came to understand that they actually hated us. Story 39. In End of Days, 1999, I was so scared of the scene where the police officers go to talk to a homeless guy at the hospital, and they find him in the ceiling, horribly mutilated with his chest cut open. I used to think he was going to fall on top of me at night. Story 40. For whatever reason, my mother thought this movie would be a good lesson for me, 20 at the time, and my niece, 11 at the time, to learn. It was incredibly bleak and depressing. My niece actually sat my mother down and told her how upset it made her. Story 41. Twister lives about 20 miles from the nearest town, as the crow flies, in a place that gets constant tornadoes in the spring. It is too far to hear any sirens, so if the weather is bad, we have the news on and an eye to the sky. Story 42. Plague Dogs. All about these 2 dogs who escaped from a lab after being tortured and experimented on. Made by the same director and author as Watership Down, if that's anything. Story 43. The Andromeda Strain 1971 is scary because it was a possibility. It's now coming true. They are now bringing back extraterrestrial samples from asteroids, and viruses are leaking from laboratories. Story 44. The Burning. International and censored version. The one with the extended raft scene. I would have been 7 or 8. It left me with a decade-long fear of garden shears. Story 45. America History X when I was maybe 12 or 13. Now 36, and I've never watched it a second time and never will. I'm sure people will think this one is crazy considering how highly praised that movie is, but I'm okay with that. Story 46. The original Poltergeist. I was 6 years old, and my dad thought it would be okay. I am a grown adult, and dolls, especially clown dolls, creep me out. Story 47. Day of the Animals. My mom took us to see it at the drive-in. I must have been about 6 years old. I don't know if she thought it was a cute Disney movie or what, but that messed me up for years. Story 48. I think it's called Core. I've never seen it since I was around 6. Seeing the world imploding on itself while the helicopter flies around it, and no one could do anything, freaked me out and made me think the world was going to end at any moment for a while. Story 49. I watched it in kindergarten, and it showed me that there are people in the world who might want to hurt me. It gave me my first nightmare and made me afraid of the dark. It's barely even a movie, more like a series of slides with an audio track. But I grew up incredibly sheltered. Until that point, I had never seen a television or movie or projector of any sort and had never been read a scary story. So, that image of the witch woman sharpening her knife to butcher the 2 kids was terrifying to me. I didn't even know such a thing existed prior to that. That latent fear of the dark has persisted in some small form for almost half a century now. To say that movie had the biggest impact on me barely does justice to how profoundly and foundationally traumatized I was from that moment. Story 50. Arachnophobia. I would watch this all the time as a kid, and I still really enjoy it. As great as this movie is, I can't help but think this created my irrational fear of spiders. Story 51. Urban Legends was the first horror movie I ever saw, and the pop rocks with the Drano still haunt me. I actually haven't had pop rocks since I watched the movie. Story 52. It the TV miniseries. I was 6 when it came out, and my parents had put a TV in my room because they had gotten a new one. I remember changing channels and seeing a clown on TV, then the clown ate someone. I am 40 now, and I am still terrified of clowns. Story 53. Transformers the movie 1986. Not only do we get this massacre of beloved characters, but we also get this emotionally scarring gem. Story 54. My daughter, about 3 to 4 years old, watched E.T. on television at my mother's. For weeks, she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming about E.T. coming through the floor to get her. She's 26 now, mostly just scared of cobwebs and spiders in her garage. Story 55. Titanic gave me a fear of drowning for so many years to the point where if I heard, "My heart will go on," I would start to get anxiety. I still avoid that song like the plague. I am Pionte. Story 56. An American Werewolf in London. My father had a habit of letting me watch movies that were far too violent for a prepubescent boy. I live in the bush in Melbourne, so I'd hear foxes and possums every night. That kept me sleepless for weeks. Story 57. Bad Boys. I was like 5 and I remember watching a scene where a dead girl was dumped out of a van on the side of the road or something. My mom told me that it's a real thing that happens where a girl can get drugged, kidnapped, and raped and to never get in the car with strangers over it, and it shook me to my core.